Armenia is a landlocked country in Western Asia containing a lot of remarkable history. So, what is the history of Armenia? Let's get started in uncovering the history of Armenia. Hi, I'm Hugo, and I love researching into extraordinary topics. Before we begin, I apologize if I mispronounce any words, names, or otherwise. I am first going to talk about Armenia's origins. The first Armenians, who are Indo-Europeans, first appeared at the end of the 7th century BC. For instance, a Britannica article titled "The History of Armenia" says driving some of the ancient population to the east of Mount Ararat, where they were known to the Greeks as Alarodio, also known as Arataeans. The invaders imposed their leadership over regions which, although suffering much from Scythian and Cimmerian depredations, must still have retained elements of a high degree of civilization, such as walled towns, irrigation works, and arable fields, upon which the less advanced newcomers might build. Furthermore, the Hayak, whom the Armenians named themselves, were rapidly conquered by Xerxes, the king of the Median Empire, and was annexed again by Cyrus II, who was part of the Achaemenid Empire of Persia. Thus, the country is mentioned as Armina and Armenia in the Byzantine inscription of Darius I, who is also known as Darius the Great, who ruled from 522 to 486 BCE. And according to the 5th century Greek historian Herodotus, formed part of the 13th satrapy of Persia. The Alarodi formed part of the 18th Exomph Anabasis, recounting the adventures of Greek mercenaries in Persia, describes the local government about 400 BCE as being in the hands of village headmen, part of whose tribute to the Persian king consisted of horses. Armenia continued to be governed by Persian or native satraps until its absorption into the Macedonian Empire of Alexander the Great. After the empire was divided between Alexander's generals, Armenian rulers paid tribute to the Seleucid kingdom, although in practice they wielded considerable autonomy. This leads me to discussing Armenia's history through the centuries. Armenia has been conquered and ruled by many empires. For example, the U.S. Department of State says in its article titled "A Guide to the United States History of Recognition, Diplomatic and Consular Relations by Country, since 1776, Armenia, that between the 4th and the 19th centuries, Armenia was conquered and ruled by, among others, Persians, Arabs, Byzantines, Mongols, and Turks. While Armenia was under Ottoman rule, the United States established a consulate in Erzurum, Armenia, present-day Erzurum, Turkey, in 1896. The consulate was transferred to Trebizond, Turkey, in 1904. Furthermore, for a brief period from 1918 to 1920, Armenia became an independent republic. In late 1920, local communists came to power following an invasion of Armenia by the Soviet Red Army, and in 1922, Armenia became part of the Transcaucasian Soviet Socialist Republic. In 1936, it became the Armenian Soviet Socialist Republic. the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991 created the opportunity for bilateral relations between Armenia and the United States. As such, Armenia was conquered and controlled by many empires, like the Persians, Byzantines, Mongols, and the Turks. And that Armenia became an independent republic for only 2 years, between 1918 and 1920. However, Armenia was annexed by the Soviet Union in 1920 and only regained independence after the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. During World War I, Armenia endured a genocide incurred to them by the Ottoman Empire. For example, the New York Times says in its archived story titled Armenian Genocide of 1915, an overview, as David Fromkin put in his widely praised history of World War I and its aftermath, a peace to end all peace, rape and beating were commonplace. Those who were not killed at once were driven into mountains and deserts without food, drink, or shelter. Hundreds of thousands of Armenians eventually succumbed or were killed. Furthermore, the man who invented the word genocide, Raphael Lemkin, a lawyer of Polish-Jewish origin, was moved to investigate the attempt to eliminate an entire people by accounts of the massacres of Armenia. He did not, however, coin the word until 1943, applying it to Nazi Germany and the Jews in a book published a year later, Axis Rule in Occupied Europe. However, to the Turks, what happened in 1915 was at most just one more messy piece of a very messy war that spelled the end of a once powerful empire. They reject the conclusions of historians and the term genocide, saying there was no premeditation in the deaths, no systematic attempt to destroy a people. Indeed, in Turkey today, it remains a crime, insulting Turkishness, to even raise the issue of what happened to the Armenians. This means the Armenian genocide has traumatized Armenians for generations. Likewise, the event influenced Raphael Lemkin to create the word genocide. However, the Turks rejected accountability of the genocide and declared it a crime to even raise the issue of the Armenian genocide, as it insults Turkishness. This leaves me with talking about Armenia today. Armenia has gone through a lot of adversities within recent years. A congressional report titled Azerbaijan and Armenia, the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, states that Armenia has gone through multiple wars with Azerbaijan in the recent decades. For instance, the report says on page 3, after the December 1991 dissolution of the USSR, Armenia and Azerbaijan armed forces fought directly, with Azerbaijani forces suffering several major defeats. Armenia and Azerbaijan signed a ceasefire in May 1994, leaving Armenian Nagorno-Karabakh forces in control of most of Nagorno-Karabakh and several surrounding territories, in total representing about 14% of Azerbaijan's land area. Observers estimate the conflict resulted in around 20,000 deaths and more than 1 million displaced persons. The displaced included about 500,000 Azerbaijanis from areas surrounding Nagorno-Karabakh and the region itself, and about 185,000 Azerbaijanis from Armenia, and more than 350,000 Armenians from Azerbaijan. Furthermore, Armenia recently lost the Nagorno-Karabakh War against Azerbaijan in 2020, which, as said on page 11, led to more than 6,000 combat deaths, about 3,360 Armenians and 2,820 Azerbaijanis, and more than 150 civilian deaths. This means Armenia has gone through a lot of adversities in the past decades, including with their recent defeat against Azerbaijan last year. So, to recap, I first talked about Armenia's origins, where the Indo-European Armenian people first appeared at the end of the 7th century BC. Furthermore, I talked about Armenia for the centuries where the Armenians were conquered by many empires, like the Persians, the Byzantines, Mongols, and the Turks. However, even though Armenia was able to be an independent republic, from 1918 to 1920, Armenia was annexed by the Soviet Union in 1920, and only regained independence after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. This leads me to talk about the Armenian Genocide, which has traumatized Armenians for generations, and influenced Raphael Lemkin to create the word genocide. However, the Turks rejected accountability for the genocide and declared it a crime to even raise the issue of the Armenian genocide because it insults Turkishness. Finally, I talked about Armenia today, where Armenia has gone through a lot of adversities in the past decades, such as the recent defeat against Azerbaijan in the Nagorno-Karabakh War last year. Thank you for watching my video, and merci et à bientôt.